front and then it disappears. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this beautiful sunny day, and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Providence, where we love beyond belief. Welcome to this special Sunday, where we are celebrating the theme of change and transformation. And as an important part of that, we are bidding goodbye to our dearly beloved interim religious education director for the last 2 years, Mandy Neff. So we have the whole church school here for the first part of the service. Church school, can you give it up? Let us know you're here. Woo-woo. And then they'll be heading out to their own celebration with Mandy partway through the service. But in the meantime, here we go. This is the day we have been given. May we make the very most of it, starting now together. So this is our time of greeting. It's our opportunity to move around at the very beginning of the service. I'd like to invite everyone to stand up and move around as you're able and greet someone right next to you or someone as far away as they could possibly be across the meeting house. Let everyone know how glad we are to be together. And now before we take our seats, can we turn and face the cameras in the back next to the organ console and wave hello to everybody at home. Hello, everybody at home. It's good to have you with us this way and to be with you this way. And now our worship associate Roxanne Stern will light our chalice.
This light
burns also in our hearts, and it lights our path towards harmony, justice, and hope for all. Our opening words this morning are from the Unitarian Universalist minister, Erica Hewitt. I call you. We call each other to this time and place as we seek the ground of our being. We are here in body, and yet we are still arriving. When we left our homes this morning, we left behind to-do lists, coffee, that's the one, household tasks, family members, maybe pets. All of these await our return. Some of us don't remember the last time we had a quiet moment to ourselves. And yet we have chosen to be here together to tend to our souls and to one another. In the days since we've last been together, some of us have been changed, while others are inviting change to take place within them. Some of us have experienced loss. We've lost things, we've lost opportunities, or even people dear to us. Some of us are fighting battles we can't even speak about. Others feel happy enough that we could have flown here with our own arms. We arrive, not knowing quite what to expect, but finding comfort in that which is familiar. Our arriving does not happen all at once. As we each settle in, we will find our way into togetherness, and in our own time, arrive. Can we join together in the words for our covenant that are printed in our order of service? As always, you do not have to be a member or friend of this church to say the words of the covenant, and visitors, you are also not required to say the words of the covenant. It's a promise we make with our own hearts. We, the members of the First Unitarian Church of Providence, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the light we know by many names, and with gratitude for our deep connection to each other and to the larger web of existence, covenant to walk together in our search for truth, seeking the paths of wisdom, compassion, and justice. Now I'd like to invite Megan Smith, who is the chair of our Spiritual Pathways Religious Education team, and Mandy Neff, who is our outgoing interim religious education director, up to the podium.
Okay, good morning. My name is Megan Smith, and I am speaking to you today as the co-chair of the Spiritual Pathways team. For those who don't know, this is our name for the committee that primarily supports the Director of Religious Education and our Spiritual Pathways / religious education / faith formation program for our children and youth. Traditional religious ed has been an evolution here at First U and within the larger UU community, and our committee's function here has been to support those changes and that evolution. As such, I have had the great pleasure of working closely with our interim director of religious education, Mandy Neff, for the last 2 years, and I'd like to take a couple of moments to share our collective appreciation for all she's done since she has been with us. The role of interim is by definition temporary. This person's job is to come into a congregation and help them make decisions about their future, decisions which will, in many cases, come to fruition under someone else's leadership. What a challenge and how bittersweet. Not every UU congregation chooses to go through the process of having an interim DRE, but I'm so grateful that ours did because it brought us Mandy, who undertook this role with grace and wisdom and intention and care. It takes a very special kind of person to serve as navigator for an entire congregation working through significant change, and clearly Mandy is a very special person. As a congregation in a time of transition, we had some work to do, and Mandy provided excellent resources and framework for us to do that work. Some of the things we accomplished or worked on with her support include history and heritage workshops to dig into the story of our congregation, where we've been and what felt important, identifying the traditions and rituals that hold meaning for us, which we want to hold on to into the future. Conversely, we have explored some current or traditional practices where we feel open to change and exploration. Mandy found and hired our tremendous youth music director, Asa Spring, and our new religious education program assistant, Amy Alberg, both of whom have brought tremendous value to our Sunday mornings. We launched parent breakfasts and multi-generational events like game night and a nature walk, plus, of course, our recent congregational retreat. We've continued to work on connecting the two halves of our congregation, the Sunday school program over in the parish house and the worshiping adults who meet here in the meeting house. The Spiritual Pathways team rewrote our mission statement to better reflect our current focus and priorities. We rewrote or updated policies. We brought in new curricula for several different age groups of children and youth. And just in case you forgot, all of this has been taking place as we continue to ease our way out of a pandemic. Some teacher teams have been in flux. Weekly attendance of youth is still ebbing and flowing, all manner of other growing pains associated with coming out of the COVID era. Through all of these challenges, and at every opportunity, Mandy has shown that she is a person of great integrity who cares deeply about children and youth. Her chapel services were fun and engaging. She has a deep knowledge of UU values and a wide network of UU resources. Beyond that, she was a pleasure to work with. She's easy to talk to. She became a friend. Her time with us is drawing to a close, but through her efforts and talent, we are moving into the next era with a settled DRE. What a tremendous gift she has given us. And on behalf of the Spiritual Pathways team and the Spiritual Pathways program, I'd just like to say a very heartfelt thank you. We have a small token of appreciation that we are presenting to her on behalf of us, the congregation. The children also have some things they might be giving her when their celebration moves to the parish house. But I'm done with my portion of the talking.
It's me. I need a moment. So it's my role to speak about the joy and gift that it has been to work with Mandy as part of the staff team. And I discovered it last, because when she started, I was on sabbatical. And I came in, and I was like, wow, she seems like totally good to go after just a few months here. And she was. And it was clear that everybody on the staff team already completely trusted her judgment, knew that she would follow through on all commitments that she made, expected her ready participation and engagement in plans that she could have also been like, oh, well, this doesn't have to be my role. But she has leapt into everything the staff team has done, leapt into the staff team itself, which makes it very difficult now to say goodbye, because it has been a pleasure to work with Mandy for all the reasons that Megan already outlined, but also because she's passionate about this faith, and she's passionate about religious education, and she's passionate about this church now. So it's also hard, I know, for her to leave us, because this has been a program that has really been driven by absolute faith and fiery commitment to what we're doing already and what we can do and be in the future. And I feel the same way. So it's been great to have not a partner in crime, but a partner in faith. We have so many partners now on the staff team, and to be so blessed with so many people who absolutely give their all and always follow through and never fail to step up has made a very perceptible difference in all our programs, including, I think, our religious education program, which she has really worked hard to help us re-examine, figure out what are the things we cherish that we never want to lose that are already in place, and what are the things we might add that need to happen now because the times have changed, or our world has changed, or we are always changing. So it has been really wonderful to have Mandy as a partner in faith, and also for her thoughtfulness. I'm always somebody who's like, ooh, yeah, boom, 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 and I go off, and Mandy's like, and she thinks, and she casts her eyes off to the side. Surely you have seen her do this if you've worked with her much. And you wait, because you know that what's coming is going to be really good. And it always is. So for your thoughtfulness, for your passion, for your absolute reliability and your vision, we're grateful. And we're going to miss you.
Okay, so they warned me to bring Kleenex up here.
It's right there, baby.
For those of you who were on the retreat with us last weekend, you heard me say this once before, friends, it is hard but important to say goodbye. We have done good work together. We have come back from COVID healthy and strong and re-envisioned programs for a new moment in Unitarian Universalism and the world. We have held 60 dynamic chapel services together, building altars, singing, knocking on the piano, meeting artists, learning about UU values and Article 2, fighting discrimination, writing letters to the state legislature to support gun control, creating fairy houses, and helping turtles escape environmental hazards, and making mosaics, and so much more. We've explored a huge range of emotions and topics. We've had serious conversations with our teens about racism and social media, and they've made it out of the escape room with seconds to spare. We've redesigned classrooms with beautiful, fresh space. We've taken and printed and framed photos of the principals. We have so many new families. We've dedicated 11 children and will bridge 6 seniors over these 2 years. There are 10 new teachers and 2 new RE staff who will be remaining with you. We've built and worked on a strategic plan that prioritizes the needs of kids, including joy and justice. And we've worked hard to break down silos and connect spiritual pathways with worship, with music, with green team, hospitality, stewardship, social justice, and within the staff team. What good work we have done. You've continued on the strong foundation you already had and been willing to grow, shift, let go, and embrace something new. And it has been healing work for me. So thank you. And of course, there's more for us all to do as we move along our separate paths now. As we do that, let me remind you about the framework in this transitional time. For healthy closure between congregation members and departing professionals, the religious professional associations, including mine, the Liberal Religious Educators Association, spell out some boundaries for departing staff. Over at least the next 2 years, we will take time apart. I won't be visiting or worshiping or teaching here. I won't contact you on social media. And I will create a covenant with my incoming colleague. All of these boundaries allow an incoming staff person to develop their own relationship with you and to assume leadership in their new settled role. Jennifer Nelson and I will be in the office together over the next month doing onboarding, and her official start date is August 1st. Of course, this means I have to say goodbye. Goodbye to your graciousness, your fun, and your gratitude. Goodbye to chapel and coming of age and coffee hour. Goodbye to your sustainable, strong volunteer teaching structures and the volunteers themselves. Goodbye to the ambitious and exciting strategic plan. Goodbye to your permission-giving, supportive, and always ready to jump in nature. Goodbye to your adventurous spirit in multi-generational worship. Goodbye to all the teams that I have worked with. Goodbye, volunteers and parents and guardians, and most of all, goodbye to the kids. Know that even though I can't be in person with you any longer, I will hold your memory warmly in my heart, and I hope you will do the same for me. So, imagine with me for a moment. Picture in your mind something about this size and golden. As my friend Dan likes to call it, this is the golden memory box. Open it up. Inside are your treasured memories. And you can take them out and look at them and remember them anytime you want to. So now, think of a memory nugget from our time together. Maybe a moment of body prayer, or listening to the singing bowl together until you can't hear it anymore. Maybe a game of turtle hurdles. Maybe a moment riding a music bicycle in Boston or rehearsing your credo. Whatever it is, take that memory and go ahead, place it inside your golden memory box. Nestle it in there along with your other treasured memories. And when the time is right, come back here and open it up and look inside and remember me. And I'll remember you. Thank you.
And now, of all things, we have to sing. But it is the hymn, We Laugh, We Cry, so it was carefully picked. We're going to sing hymn number 354 while teachers and young people depart for their further celebrations with Mandy. So can we rise in body or spirit?
We meet to feel Let us share the joys and sorrows that join us together in beloved community. Yesterday, we had a beautiful, thoughtful memorial service for our good friend, Mona Speaker. For over 60 years, Mona and her husband, Bob, sat in pew number 50. She will be missed. A candle of remembrance for the Reverend Ken McLean, who passed away in Maryland on May 29th. He was a dear friend to many in this congregation and to the legions of Shoalers at Star Island. He too will be missed. A candle of gratitude for the volunteers at the May Food Share. We distributed food to 152 households, feeding 396 family members. A candle of courage for my daughter, who is nervously starting a new internship today. A prayer of thanks for my wife, Sarah, who is out of the ICU and back at home healing. From John Hickey, a candle of excitement for the Rhode Island Gay Men Chorus concerts that are coming up this weekend, but more importantly, a candle of gratitude for their coming here to sing on Pride Saturday, June 15th. And if you haven't heard, First U is the new home of the Rhode Island Gay Men's Chorus. The future looks bright for us all. Let us join our hearts and minds in the spirit of reflection and prayer and meditation. Find your breath. Relax. Please take a deep breath. One more. And one more. An original reflection. To know transcendence is to know that we belong to the universe as surely as we belong to ourselves, that we join here to overcome isolation, to be as one, to know us, to be at home here on earth under the stars, in communion with each other. To know transcendence is to know that we belong to ourselves as surely as we belong to the universe. That we join here for intrepid interconnection, to be apart, to know others, to reconnect here on earth, under the stars, in community with all creation. May we know transcendence today and for all our days. And now if you've lost someone in the past year that you want to offer silent tribute to, I invite you to stand or raise your hand.
I want to start my homily this morning by revisiting a story I told you many years ago. It feels like a good time to tell it again. I was astonished to realize as I was looking at it that it was over 30 years ago that I was a young student minister, and I always met with my supervising minister, Woody Widrick, in his office, which was also the church's administrative space. They just had one room for everything. And he had a desk and a chair, and I had a chair, and we were surrounded by the copier and tables with lots of stuff on them, reams of paper and paper cutters and hole punchers and file folders from back when you could touch all your documents, and calendars and computers and so forth. And there was also a bunch of old storage boxes for old records and files, and they were covering the floor under the tables. And they had big pre-printed labels on them with 4 sections to be filled in. One section was labeled from, which was either for where the contents came from or the date they came from, right? And then 2 for the destination or the end date. And then contents, obviously, to describe what was inside. And destroy for the date by which the content would no longer be required or relevant. Mostly the labels were blank. But those boxes were filled, and I used to look at them, even with their blank labels, maybe especially because the labels were blank, and think how organized and tidy and appealing they looked. How nice it would be if life was actually like this. If everything in life could effectively be dealt with by those boxes. If we always knew precisely when an issue arose, and if we knew precisely the date when it was resolved, if we could easily say exactly what everything was, and if, this would be so freeing, we always knew definitely when we would no longer need it, or when we would be done with it, whatever the it is, and have that freeing scheduled, ready to go, written down. Because it was so obvious that life was actually nothing like that. Things rose slowly into awareness, and everything was complicated and hard to sum up or categorize. Nowadays, we call that intersectionality, but back then, we just called it complicated. And it was never clear if or when we were ever really done with anything. And that is still true. Ultimately, those storage boxes were an illusion. So no wonder their labels were mostly empty. And life was messy and hard to manage, and so full of flux and evolution and surprises, good and bad, not just for me, but for the church I was learning to serve then, and all the people in it going through the ups and downs and heartbreak and beauty of living. Even then, it was apparent to me that one of the ongoing challenges of being a human being and being a human being living with other human beings was dealing with change. Change in us, in our bodies, in our minds, in what we know and what we know we don't know, in what we think and how we work, changes in our circumstances and contexts, change in our society, change in our families and friends. I could go all day just listing all the kinds of change that we all constantly encounter all the time, but I don't need to because you all know. Which brings us, of all things, to quicksand. Fortunately, there's not too much of it actually physically present in Rhode Island. But metaphorically, it's very present. It brings us to quicksand because quicksand is somewhat what living in these turbulent times now, these reactive times now, can feel like. And it is also pretty much the opposite of those tidy storage boxes. We're going through our days, often feeling fairly challenged already. And then we suddenly find that everything is different. We lose a loved one. And we've lost so many from this congregation in the past year, just in the past year. We lose a loved one. We receive a diagnosis. We lose a job. Ancestry.com tells us we have an unknown relative. Our eyes are opened to an injustice that we hadn't already registered. We lose or gain something that rocks our world. We are subject to fire or flood or tornado or earthquake, literally or figuratively, and we find that what we thought was firm ground is actually quicksand. And the reason I want to talk about quicksand isn't because of that. It's because the recommended response to quicksand is so surprising. It is not what you would expect. It's not like lurch over to try to find a branch. Lift up your foot as hard as it is and try to take a step. Those are the things you should not do. It doesn't work to try to lift yourself out of it or to wade through it. Rather, the only way to safely extract yourself, actually, let me ask, does anybody know? It's not stay still, it's lie down. It's get prone. It's get prone. I mean, it's stay still as opposed to like struggle and thrash in panic. Don't do that. But it's lie down. On/in the quicksand. And then swim. Swim. Because that disperses your body weight and gives you a much better chance to make your way through the quicksand, which hopefully you just stepped into, so you're not super far, right? If it's really deep. And of course, quicksand is not like water, and so swimming is not easy to do in it. It's hard and it's slow and it's tiring, but it is the best way out. The only way out is through. Did you see that coming? Yeah. And it's funny, in a way, that we even have to process this, because of course everything changes and life has its highs and lows, so does history. We know all this. Technically, no one of us is the same from one moment to the next. Cells are growing and dying all the time. Every 7 years, our cells have completely changed. We all grow, we all age, and yet we do have to process this, in part because when things are good or peaceful, or at least better than they were, we just want to hang on to it. We just want to dwell in that sweetness and not have to engage with everything else, or even anything else. And the inevitable turning of hours or days that inevitably brings the end of some things, even situations, even people we would give anything to keep. The beginning of other circumstances and other people, and the inevitable next chapters, whether dreaded or hoped for, in our lives. So we have to process, because our heart's desire to stop time will never prevail. And we have to process this also because of the difference between change we choose and change that comes upon us. No one is prepared for change that descends like an ambush. And no one is surprised that we resist and mourn sudden devastation. We have all been there. But even change we seek and work for can still be really hard. And that, I think, we don't always remember or don't always expect. Even change we want and work for can be really hard. A job long sought, a degree long pursued, a child long tried for. I didn't actually tell my husband I was going to mention this story, but I've gotten his permission before, so I'm sure it's fine. That look at him sitting back. He's like, all right, bring it. That when Tim and I got married, and some of you know this already, but a bunch of you don't, after Tim and I got married, which was after 6 years of being together. I know, that's so long, right? Anyway, when we got married, after 6 years of being together, and with both of us being in our 40s at that point, to say the least, it was a welcome change. We had worked hard to get there, and I had wanted it. And still, for me, it was difficult. Finally, it was time for this change, to change from being from a single person who needed to remember to look out for herself to being a married person who needed to look out for my spouse as well as myself. Or not even that. It was time to change to a person who needed to look out for us. Not me and him, but more than that, this new wedded creation that was us. I literally even had a new name. In fact, I chose to take Tim's name precisely because I could feel that getting married later in life, it was hard to change gears, hard to go from being me to being us. And I was worried, and I believe rightly, that my holding back in any way would undermine our marriage. So I was marrying a wonderful guy, and we already had a wonderful life together. I had no reservations or misgivings about it, and still it was hard on deep levels to absorb this new reality as mine, to absorb this new identity as mine, and even to honor it sometimes as I knew I should. I never thought beforehand that getting married would be hard to take in and live up to. But in the beginning, it sometimes felt that way. It took time and deliberate effort to settle in. And frankly, sometimes it still takes work to be us instead of me. And I am grateful every day that I have this work to do and this man to do it with. And it is still work. Back in the 1970s, there was a best-selling nonfiction book called Future Shock. Does anybody remember this book? Okie dokie. It was by Alvin Toffler, and he defined future shock as too much change in too short a time. That's interesting. Too much change in too short a time. Which results in an experience that he described, I don't know why we don't still use this language, as the premature arrival of the future. It was an important insight when that book came out, and I think it's still important. This is the essence of the challenge of change, even sometimes of good change, even sometimes of change we want or have sought. Change is change, and people are creatures of habit, and getting acclimated to change takes effort, and too much change can feel hard to accept. I think that's what's going on in our country right now. People are struggling to come to terms with all the change, with paying attention to the suffering and injustices too many of us ignored or were simply ignorant of for far too long. There is so much to take in, so much to make up for, so much to change. And even though there are so many joys and gifts on the other side of the work is hard, and sometimes it feels bad, and it leaves people unable to take in all the change, people rejecting change that overwhelms them. But while that is playing out nationally on a macro level, my concern this morning is more immediate. I don't know how each of us does with change. We are learning together how our congregation does with change in our time as this church. Our strategic plan, which we created and chose together, has brought new intentionality and focus to our existence as a beloved community. which has already carried change with it and will continue to going forward. And I know there will be times for each of us in our lives and for all of us together in this beloved community when we are or will be challenged by change. Every one of us. So with this homily, there is something I would offer and something I would ask regarding this challenge. What I offer is this: as with quicksand, when we are struggling with change, the only way out is through. Change we choose or not will keep coming upon us. And when it does, we have to cast ourselves into it and swim to get to where we can gain a handhold and find our way onto firmer ground. And sometimes the firmer ground won't be what we came from, what we used to understand as firmer ground. Because change changes us along with it. And sometimes we define firm ground in whole new ways because of what we experience and learn along our journey. So it's not just change, it's also sometimes evolution. And with evolution, we are always the better for it. Heraclitus of Ephesus, the self-taught philosopher who lived about 100 years or so before Socrates, in the Greco-Persian city of Ephesus in what is now Turkey, is the one who famously said, "No one ever steps in the same river twice," which is tied to his other most famous announcement in Greek, pandare, or in English, everything flows. Pandare. His point was, even a great river is not actually ever the same river. It is part of the nature of all things that water moves with a current, that new water flows in to fill the riverbed, that it shrinks in a drought, it swells in a flood, inhabitants come and go, live and die, as do all who ride the river on their journey. So yes, life can be quicksand. But it is not only quicksand, which is why it is possible to swim our way through even the most quicksand times in our lives and find our way to a shore, to firmer ground that awaits us, even if it is a different ground than what we trod before, because everything flows. We need to cultivate that awareness. We need to hold on to it. And we also need to be aware that we are living in a time of intense tumult that doesn't even take into account the tumult in our own personal lives. In addition to which, our church is on this journey. So that's a lot. Even just with these Sundays, today we bid Mandy goodbye with gratitude and affection and a sense of loss and lots of hope for our future and for hers. And next week, we welcome our incoming DRE, Jenny Nelson. This after many years of intense challenge and change, as we thanked Kathy Sagal for her decades of service, as we worked to come through COVID, as we changed intensely to meet all we encountered. There is so much right there for us, and joy and sorrow are woven fine. But here's the thing, in beloved community, even in the hardest times, we are not alone. We have each other to be sad with, to be mad with, to struggle with, to lean on, to share with, to learn from, to rejoice with, to journey with, to love with. And that helps. We are here together. We are here for each other. We are here for our lives' joys and changes and challenges, and we are here for our church's joys and changes and challenges, and those of the larger world around us. Together, we meet it. And this happens all the time. Some of you are here right now, today, for comfort, for strength, for wisdom, for vision, for balance, for justice, for hope, for life. Therefore, I want to ask you now, I have to go downstairs for this part, I'll be right back. Therefore, I want to ask you now, and I know we are in New England, and many of us are Yankees. I grew up in New England, so I come by it secondhand, but it's in me too. Nonetheless, please move if you need to in order to take someone's hand. Take the hand of your friend or your love in the pew with you. Take the hand of the good neighbor or the good stranger in front of or behind you. Let us all take each other's hands now for a moment. And I see what you're doing. You're making a big chain, even more awesome. Because this is what we have. When we are sinking in quicksand, when we're swimming in quicksand, when we're seeking a handhold or finding the shore, when we are standing on a new shore, when we are sussing out our evolving self, when we are immersed in change we wanted, or change we dreaded, or change we never saw coming, with all its gifts and challenges, this is still what we have, each other. We have the people we love, and the people we will love, but may not know yet. People who will hold us and be held by us, who will teach us and learn from us as we live and struggle and learn and change, even when our path takes a turn, even when our footing gives way. Now, I'll admit, it is not easy to swim holding hands, and it would probably make swimming in actual quicksand harder. But it is so much easier to live holding hands. And this is what we are actually doing, not just in this moment, but every day as we move throughout lives with each other at our sides. And this is and will be enough. Enough to matter, enough to make a difference for all of us in this church, and sometimes for many well beyond us, all changed and changing together. Amen. Thank you. This is the time for our offering, our chance to show our gratitude for this community that is with us in all things. Oh, dang. But see, we are together. And when one of us has a lapse, the others come in and say, we have a hymn. It's number 1018, Come and Go With Me. Can we rise in body or spirit? This is one that we got to really sing out if it's going to work. Don't be shy, just go for it. Offering, which is good because now we're energized and limbered up and it's easier to access the 5 rather than the 1, or the 10 rather than the 5. Please give as generously as you can for the life and the work of this beloved community, and thank you so much for all that you give and all that you do and all that you are. Our brief invitations this morning. Join friends from around the state to celebrate Strawberry Thanksgiving on June 8th from 12 to 4 p.m. at Ninigret Park in Charlestown. The celebration signifies the importance of friendship. So join First U and friends from the Tamaqua Museum at the Strawberry Worship. The First U group plans to meet at the park entrance at 1 p.m. Contact First U member Erica Russley. Erica, could you stand up so people can see you who's here today? If you want more information, Erica's contact info is also in this week's edition of the First U Times, our newsletter. A reminder that our First U annual meeting is happening today, right after worship, in the auditorium in the building next door. Feel free to stop and grab a quick snack and then head up the stairs off of the parlor or take the elevator to check in and find a good seat. We will be voting on officers and Prudential Committee members, approving a budget for fiscal year 25, and voting on some bylaw changes, all of which were sent in the Wednesday and Friday editions of the First U Times. And lastly, another thing you can do after worship is to sign up to volunteer as a member of the teaching team for the Spiritual Pathways program next year. I think it's obvious how rich of an experience that is for all its participants, including teachers. This is a great opportunity to meet our wonderful young people and have a big impact in their life and faith. And please speak to our outgoing DRE, Mandy Neff, if you have questions. Our benediction is from the writing of UU Minister Laurelyn Bellamy. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world, and go in peace. Can we join in the words for our chalice extinguishing? We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again. And we'll hear the postlude, and I think we're going to just skip over the closing song for this morning because we're running long and I don't want us to lose time for the annual meeting. So we'll just hear this gorgeous postlude and then be on our way.